So to do track motion, this is where you have a video and you want something to follow it. It could be words, it could be another image, it could be pretty much anything. Or in terms of your HUD, it could be that you want to attach an element to part of your video. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So here is my composition, and I'm going to pull down a video called Troubled Girl. So this was just a free video that I found. So I'm just going to resize it. So you can see it goes to here. I'm going to bring my work area over, and I'm going to do a trim comp to work area. So that's the whole video. So you can see it's just this girl walking in the woods. So what I want to do is now I'm going to do what's called track motion. So I'm going to turn down my tracker, which if you remember, this is what we did with the warp stabilizer. Same idea, but this time I am going to go and I'm going to track her motion going across. So I'm going to click on track motion. So if you'll notice, it took me into the layer. So I'm not in my composition anymore, I'm in the layer. And this comes up, this track point. So I'm going to hover over this until the cursor turns black, meaning I've selected both of them, and I'm going to pull this over to where it intersects her hair with the tree because I'm looking for contrast. So this is the search area. This is what After Effects is searching for in terms of contrast. And this is the focus area. So what it's saying is it's going to focus on where there's that contrast of her hair and the trees behind her. So I might make it a little bigger. And I can even make this a touch bigger. So I'm going to make sure again that I want to think about how much she's going to be moving into the frame. So I'm actually going to put this even more to the right because she's walking to the right. So I've come back into my tracker. I'm going to click on options and this will come up. I can rename it if I want. You might have more than one tracker, but for now I'm just going to leave it. And I'm going to go with luminance. And what that means is there's a pretty decent contrast between her and the trees. So I'm going to choose luminance. If you choose saturation, that's based more on color, and the RGB is based more on the red, green, and blue. Down here, I'm going to leave on the sub-pixel positioning that is going to it's going to read down into the pixel, but I'm also going to say adapt feature on every frame. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I don't really need a pixel perfect track for what I'm going to do. So, but she is moving her head quite a bit. So I'm going to put that, and I am going to choose stop tracking. So it's obvious that After Effects can't follow the feature any longer. Just saying that if the confidence is below 80%. So once she kind of gets heading off the screen, not quite as important. So I'm going to hit OK. So I want to go back to my composition. So I'm going to come over here and hit H. And what this is going to do is it's going to bring up the hand tool. So this is where I can move things around. And so now I'm going to come down to where it says Analyze. And I'm going to hit the forward button. So right here. So what this will do is this is going to start my file playing. You can see it's in slow motion. And it will, this is how it's tracking. So you notice my two box, my search and my focus, they're tracking her motion. And you will see when we're finished here of how this will end. So you can see I just stopped it because I was trying to zoom out here a little bit. So what this did is this put this motion on her. So I can come back in here. So all those little dots you can see are keyframes. So each one of those is a keyframe. And once she is done walking off the screen, and I'm just going to turn off my notifications here, which I didn't do. But anyway, so she's pretty much done. So that's enough for us to see. And if I do a show keyframe, which is the U key, you can see down here I have a tracker now in my video layer. And these are all keyframes. So you can see she walked, stopped a little bit and she kept walking. And that's where I stopped it by accident, but you still get the idea. So what I'm going to do in here is I want to put some text layers. So again, remember I'm in my layer. Notice I can't use my text button. So I'm going to go back to my composition. And if you'll notice again, I can't because I'm in the hand tool. I need to be on my pointer tool. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to close up and I'm going to type in, am I enough? And then I'm just going to duplicate that. Am I ready? And I'll duplicate it a third time. Am I good enough? Whatever, we'll figure it out. And I'm just going to bring my cursor over here to see, so I can really see where she is. And I'm going to pull these around where I think I might want them to be. And I'm going to make them all a little bit smaller. So as she walks, this is roughly where I think I want these word bubbles to be around her. So even though it's not everywhere, of course, it's only right there. So it doesn't really matter at this point where I am putting those, because as you'll see, things will change. So let's say, though, I say, okay, I want these words to follow her. So if I come back to my tracker and I want to assign some of these to her, so if I go to my motion source, you can see I have her. If I come into my layer, again, I can at least see what's going on here. So the thing is, in my motion target, in my motion tracker, I should say, back in my layer, when I click on my layer, I will have this edit target. And if I click on this, this tells me what is my motion target. And I have the 3 text layers, but I want all 3 of them to follow her, right? I don't want just one. And yes, I could go in and do each one individually, but there's an easier way. So I'm going to come under layer and new and remember our null object. So the null object, remember, is just an empty object. And I'm just going to change the color of this so it's easier to see. So notice the null object, obviously there's nothing to see. So it's an empty layer, right? Technically. So where I have it in my timeline doesn't really matter. So if I come back in here and hit edit target, notice my null comes up. So what this is saying now is I want my null object to see the new motion path. So if I come back to the composition, here's my null object, right? It's not moving or anything, but I can see it. So if I come back over here and I click on my null object, or my video, I'm sorry, and you can see right down here, motion target is null 3. So it's saying it's going to target that, and I'm going to hit apply. And apply dimensions to X and Y just means my X and my Y axis. So now notice my null target, if you can see that yellow square, is following her head. And if I put this down, you can see I have keyframes. And there's the motion path that it goes on. Now, I have a null object. So what I can do is now remember parenting. So I can select my 3 text layers. I can select them all at once. I can grab one pick whip and drag it over to my null object. And now those items are going to follow my null object, which is following her motion. So if I come back and I play it, and that just stops because, again, I stopped her motion. So that is how to track your motion.